Tuesday on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. We have a special guest today, Chris Hoke, former Pittsburgh Steelers defensive lineman, two-time Super Bowl champion, made time to come on the show. I'm going to have an extensive talk about him, just his insights on the team, just getting you guys a different perspective of a guy who's been with the Steelers when they've won a Super Bowl. We'll break things down with him. Also, talk about Damontae Kazee. He spoke on Monday about saying that he's going to be back and ready to go, what that means for the Pittsburgh Steelers, all right here on today's episode of the Locked On Steelers podcast. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, and welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things of the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find the show on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Odyssey, and YouTube. If you're watching this video on YouTube, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button to our YouTube channel to get all of our daily Monday through Friday episodes, as well as our bonus content. We thank you for making the Locked On Steelers podcast your first listen every day. Today's episode is brought to you by BetterHelp Therapy Online. BetterHelp. Give online therapy a try with BetterHelp.com/lockedon and get on your way to being your best self. Joining us today is the man himself, two-time Super Bowl champion, defensive lineman Chris Hoke. This is a guy who was a hero to me growing up. Because Chris, when you came in 2004 and started getting playing time behind Casey Hampton because he got hurt that year, yeah. I was a freshman in high school, and I was like, that's the way I want to play, baby.
You're a lot younger than I thought you were. Well, first of all, man, kudos to you. That was amazing. Like, you just rolling that off your tip of your tongue, all of the intro. Now, I'd get tongue-tied so many times. I would freeze. I wouldn't be able to do that. Number two, in the intro, before the music you played, you talked about two-time Super Bowl champion. I never get to do this because I'm usually in the studio. I'm on TV, things going on. Well, here are the Super Bowl rings.
Oh, my goodness.
Talk about two-time Super Bowl champ. Here are the rings. I reached up in my hidden spot here that I hide them. Super Bowl, and I got a picture. See, everybody's getting kind of a view of where my office is, where I do a lot of my studying, my prep. I have a right here in this frame. Let's see if I can go the right way here. That's my Super Bowl 40 jersey that I wore, Super Bowl 40. There's a picture right there of my son on my shoulders. I can't see because of the glare of the window. And man, I bleed black and gold. I played 11 years for the Steelers, and so it was 11 wonderful years of my life. So, but I appreciate the words. Listen, that 2004 season was unbelievable, right? And I can't believe you were in high school. But it was a blessing in my life too, because the first 3 years, Chris, I didn't play a lot. I was just trying to find my way on the field. And Casey Hampton, I've told him many times, Casey's just a beautiful friend of mine. We're still good friends, talk often. He changed my career in two places in my career. First, he held out in camp, and which gave me an opportunity to get reps. If Casey wouldn't have held out in camp for a few days, I wouldn't have gotten opportunities to practice and get reps with the second and third team, and probably wouldn't have made the team my rookie year. So that's one time I always say, man, because you held out, you blessed my life and gave me reps. Number two was in 2004. I hadn't really played, right? And Casey tears his ACL. I'm his backup. I had a few snaps early in the season. Remember, that was week 6 against the Cowboys. I came in, and again, because Casey got hurt, which, was a tough one for all of us, because you hate to see a guy, especially when you're so close, to get hurt. It provided me an opportunity to go out there and showcase my skills and what I had learned over the first 3 years, and really put me in a position to play for the next 7.
Yeah. You did a great job. I remember that 2004 run, but there's something similar that I'm sure everyone talks about between your 2004 run, when you guys finished 15-1 and just short of the Super Bowl, before winning the Super Bowl next year. And that's, of course, you guys had a rookie quarterback, and you guys were Ben Roethlisberger, his rise that season. But of course, this season it's different with Kenny Pickett. This is a different era of the Steelers. This is a different version of the Steelers. Ben was drafted onto a team that had a lot of its identity already, and had already kind of figured out who they were on offense. This team, they have defensive talent, but they don't have that offensive identity. Chris, I wanted to lead with this with you, because you've been very adamant and very vocal that, like, hey, Kenny Pickett, you can love him all you want, but he is making mistakes. So this isn't all about Matt Canada right now, the struggles on offense. But Chris, how do the Steelers help a rookie quarterback like Kenny Pickett get back on the good foot?
Okay, well, first of all, maybe kind of answer to some of the things you said early.
Sure.
So I've been vocal, but here's the thing. I want to be very clear. I have never said that Kenny Pickett cannot be a really, really good quarterback in the
Absolutely.
NFL. I've been very clear that, when Trubisky was starting early in the season, right? Trubisky wasn't making huge mistakes, but he wasn't putting a lot of points on the board. Mm-hmm. And these were tough weeks and tough losses, but he was playing okay. He was playing good enough for the team to win. And catches were being made and plays were being made. And then, the Steeler Nation was wanting Mitch Trubisky out. They wanted Kenny Pickett to start. They thought that he'd be the savior. Mm-hmm. And I remember saying on the radio with Cook and Starkey on the Fan, I said, listen, guys, I said, be careful what you wish for. Be careful what you ask for. I mean, he's a rookie. And even though he played well in the preseason, that's not going to translate into the regular season because in the preseason, you don't game plan.
Right.
The coordinators in the NFL are really good, and they're just trying to evaluate their guys. So they get into the preseason, and they're just calling their defense, and they're actually trying to put their guys in tough situations so they can see how they respond. And so Kenny Pickett never had a defense game prep and put together a package to attack his weaknesses and limit his strengths, right? And so I said this on the radio. When we come in, Coach Tomlin makes the change. I think it's a little earlier than he wanted to. I think it's a little earlier than Lott thought he should, but Steeler Nation thought it was too late, right? So they put him in, right? They put Kenny in, and he came in and provided a spark, right? He did a good job. And a lot of times, I realized this when I was a player, when you're just thrown into the fire and at a moment's notice, you seem to respond and play much better because you don't have time to think. And as players, sometimes when the pressure mounts, you overthink things, and it actually paralyzes you. It slows you down, right? So I think as the weeks went on and he started to think about it and he maybe overthought some things, I'm not going to get in his head and speak for him, but, he's a rookie.
Yeah.
And he's making mistakes. Mm-hmm. And that's okay because he's a smart guy. Kenny Pickett's a smart guy. By all accounts, I've talked to him several times. I've watched him. You hear about the people that know him intimately and know him personally. He's a smart guy. He's going to learn from his mistakes. But rookies make mistakes. Inexperienced players make mistakes, right? And so we have to live those mistakes as we watch him grow and develop. And the reality is that the last, 4 weeks, he's made mistakes. He's missed guys that are open. That's okay.
Right. It's all part of the process.
Yeah. Hopefully he's back in the film room and he works with his coaches and he's watching the film and saying, okay, next time I got to see that guy. I got to watch this with this kind of defense, with cover 2, with cover 3. This guy's going to pop open a little sooner. Or I can trust that Freiermuth, even though he's covered, if I put the ball right here, Freiermuth's going to, last second, going to separate and get the ball, right? You see a lot of times good quarterbacks throw the ball over the middle to a guy who's covered, but if you throw it to the inside point, just a little bit inside, he can stretch and he can separate the last second and catch that ball. And you've seen Kenny throw those balls in recent weeks. So there's things that are going, you're seeing some progression, but at the end of the day, he's got 2 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, and a fumble, right? And those are rookie mistakes. And I'm not condemning him. I'm not casting judgment.
But you're calling it like it is.
For the rest of his career. A lot of great quarterbacks, Chris, have gone through these tough times.
Yeah.
You look at Peyton Manning, Hall of Famer. I mean, the guy that I played against that was unbelievable. He had a horrible rookie year. I think back, I'm just thinking Troy Aikman, Hall of Fame quarterback, horrible rookie year. Yep. I mean, there are guys, and there's other guys too. Those are guys that come to my mind right away. But just because Kenny, as long as Kenny is taking a very objective view of his game and doesn't take emotion into the film room on Monday,
right,
and watches that film and says, here's where I made mistakes. Here's where I got to improve. Now, here's what he can prove. It's a lot of it is just experience, Chris. A lot of it is experience. It's just going through, right? Because here's the problem. Let me give you an analogy. Have you ever been into a batting cage?
Yes, I have.
Okay. Now, you crank it up to like 80 miles an hour. Listen, I'm not a baseball player. I played Little League. But you're hitting at the first, you're swinging, and what? You're missing the ball.
Yeah.
You're missing the ball. You're missing the ball. And that ball's coming flying. And then you sit in there a little more. And that ball's coming to 80 miles an hour. And then all of a sudden you hit it, foul. You foul it off. And then pop, you start to crank it. And then all of a sudden you catch up to it and you start cranking that ball and it's flying. It's coming off your bat because you're seeing it. It's the same thing in your growth and your progression in any sport. So as a quarterback, he gets in there, it's like a bug in a windshield. The things are going so fast that it's hard to see, right? The rush is coming. He's trying to go through his progression. And these guys, the speed of the game in the NFL is so much faster than any college level. You can talk about the SEC.
Right.
Yeah, SEC, man, awesome games over the weekend. But in the NFL, it's even faster. You have D linemen that run like linebackers and linebackers that run like DBs and DBs that run amazingly fast and hit linebackers. I mean, this is the best of the best, Chris. And so it's going to take time for him to catch up. You also have D coordinators that if they weren't good enough, they'd be in college. They're in the NFL for one reason. I mean, a couple weeks ago, he faced Leslie Frazier, ex-head coach, right? And he's facing these guys. These guys are experts. And you look at this and think, okay, they are looking at his film now. They are putting together a game plan to stop him. Yeah. And so they're going to do everything they can to limit what he likes to do and attack his weaknesses.
And the Steelers have played 5 of the top 8 defenses in the NFL when you look at the statistics this week. So putting that all in mind, there's a lot. We'll be right back with my interview of Chris Hoke, former Steelers defensive lineman and 2-time Super Bowl champion. But first, we got to talk to you guys because this episode is sponsored by BetterHelp Therapy Online. Life is full of twists and turns, and it's important to show up for yourself through it all. And I can tell you, getting therapy is one of the best things that you could do for yourself. It's one of the best things I did for myself when I needed something, because sometimes life starts piling up on you. You get a lot of burdens, and sometimes you don't find time to take out time for yourself to help yourself. That's where BetterHelp's online therapy comes in. They assess your needs and they match you with your own licensed professional therapist in less than 48 hours. You can talk about your personal experience whenever you're talking to one of these therapists, because they're finding anyone that's the best fit for you. And remember, this isn't a crisis line. This isn't self-help. It's professional therapy done securely online and available to people worldwide. You can also log into your account anytime and send a message to your therapist whenever you want. With therapy, it could take a few tries to find the right fit for you. So BetterHelp makes it easy, and they can make it free, and they do make it free to change therapists if needed. And they have a special offer right now for our listeners. You can get 10% off your first month of BetterHelp.com with using the promo code LOCKEDON. That's LOCKEDON, locked on at BetterHelp.com. Again, that's 10% off your first month of online therapy at BetterHelp.com/LockedOn. Chris, I know we only got a couple minutes left with you here because you got a busy day, but I wanted to.
We'll take a few more minutes here. I'll give you. Let's have this conversation.
I absolutely. What are things? How are you evaluating Mike Tomlin, Matt Canada, and Mike Tomlin specifically with how he's handled a rookie quarterback season? Because a lot of people look at this, and a lot of people Steelers fans, they want instant gratification. They like Kenny Pickett needs to have a winning record right now, and they need to be a playoff team, but. Realistically, you lose TJ Watt. You got a rookie quarterback. Your offense didn't have an identity in the first place when you came in here. This is part of a rebuilding process. But you as an NFL veteran, you saw what the Steelers went through, and then you were there when Mike Tomlin took over the team. What's your evaluation of how Mike Tomlin and the Steelers have handled this so far quarterback rookie season for Kenny Pickett?
I think it's a mixed bag, right? And I think if you went back and Mike was honest, Coach Tomlin, he would tell you that he could have probably handled some things differently because he's never been through this. Think about it for a minute.
Right.
As a head coach, he came to the Steelers. He already had a starting quarterback. Ben Roethlisberger was on his way. And so he never had to break in a new quarterback. And so you talk to other guys and you see how things happen and you learn from other experiences throughout the league. But when you're going through it, it's a little different.
Yes.
Right. And so how has he done? I think it's a mixed bag. I think that he probably could have done some things differently. And I think there's things that he did that was good. But the reality is you've got a young quarterback now, and you're at where you're at. It is what it is, Chris, right? And so how can you, moving forward, put him in the best position to be successful, right? And it's really just not losing. Your Coach Tomlin does a great job he's consistent, right? You can't ride the highs and you can't ride the lows, right? And you've got to remain consistent, and you've got to be focusing on just getting better each day. I think about when I was playing high school football. We always say, we put our hand on the pulse, say every day in every way we get a little better. And that's what it is it's really simple, and it seems kind of what's mushy maybe, but it's every day just staying on the details. It's not getting caught up in what the Steeler Nation is saying. It's not getting caught up with the media saying. It's focusing on a progression every single day and eliminating old mistakes, and new mistakes are going to come and knocking those off every single day. But the messaging is important. It's staying consistent and that's why the Steelers have been successful for so many years. Other NFL teams, they overreact, they overcorrect.
Right.
And then they drop themselves into a hole. The Steelers have stayed consistent, and they've always done things their way, and they haven't overreacted. They haven't overcorrected. And that's the same way to handle a rookie quarterback is keep your messaging simple, keep it consistent and pointed and focusing on the details. And as experience comes and you work on those things, he'll slowly come out of it.
My last question for you, Chris, because I know you got stuff to do, but I wanted to ask you, what is your confidence? It's not just this year, because them making the playoffs this year at 2-6 is a very low bar, or a very low chance. But what is your confidence in the Steelers to figure this out with this group of guys and what they're building forward? They just added a second-round draft pick. What is your confidence with this group, with T.J. Watt, Mike Tomlin, Minkah Fitzpatrick, Cam Hayward, Najee Harris, Kenny Pickett, with this crew to get back to being competitive sooner rather than later, like in the next season or so, to be back on the field and everyone's like, whoa, that's the Steelers that we remember watching all the time?
Yeah. You know what? So a couple of things. First of all, I think there needs to be a change as O coordinator. I would like to see them bring in a guy who has a proven track record of developing a young quarterback.
Yeah.
You got a guy here that you believe, you draft him in the first round, so you believe he's the future of the franchise. So give him all the resources he needs, right? Everything he needs so he can be successful. So whatever you got to do, surround him with a quarterback coach. Maybe, I don't know Sullivan that well. Maybe he is the guy, but surround him with the best option at quarterback coach. Surround him with the best option at offensive coordinator that can provide him a culture, can provide him an atmosphere where he can learn and be successful, because your franchise really it hinders on his success. Because if he fails, this franchise is going to be set back big time. And it's going to be, you think this is hard now, going 2-6, it's going to be even harder. So doing everything they can to surround him with greatness, great coaches, great players, great offensive line, that to me is important. And Coach Tomlin, listen, I know he's taking a lot of heat. Coach Tomlin has never lost a locker room. Right. He's never lost a locker room. And I know it's always sexy to attack the head coach when things aren't going right. And what he does, he is a great motivator. He's a great manager of men. He's a great inspirer of men. He's a great leader. And I think if he makes a couple of little changes with the coaching staff, there are a lot of holes on this roster. But here's the reality. There's only a couple spots that if you upgrade or if you improve, that you will be right in the mix, right? T.J. Watt being there, Chris, you know this. If he would have gotten hurt that first game and he's been healthy this whole time, completely different season.
Absolutely.
Last week against the Eagles, I mean, they gave up touchdown passes of 39, 37, 27. I mean, a 43-yard touchdown pass after a turnover. I mean, 4 huge chunk touchdowns.
Yep.
I would say 2 or 3 of those wouldn't have happened if T.J. Watt was in the game.
I'd agree.
He's either going to get the pressure and hit Jalen Hurts while he's throwing the ball, or he's going to sack him, or he's going to be the reason why somebody else does. Right? He changes everything on the defense. I mean, he really does. And he brings an intensity, and he brings a resiliency, and he brings a confidence to that defense. So just T.J. Watt by himself, and that's a lot of pressure on T.J., but he's shown that he can handle it. But if you get some pieces on the offensive line, right? If you get things going and you feel, I think if you just have a couple, 2 or 3 spots that you upgrade at the inside linebacker position, you get a corner. They traded this week for Will Jackson. We'll see if that helps. But just a couple things, and that's all you got to do to really put you in the mix. And that's all where the Steelers wanted. Steelers aren't asking Mike Tomlin to be 15-2 every year. They're not asking him to be 17-0. They're asking him to get in the playoffs and get in the dance and have an opportunity to go for the Lombardi.
I hear that. You guys just heard it right there from Chris Hoke. He's a guy who's won Super Bowls, both with Bill Cowher and with Mike Tomlin. Chris, thanks so much for joining us here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. It's great to hear your wisdom on the show. You guys can follow him at HokeyBro76 on Twitter. You can also check him out on post games, KDKA. He's always breaking down the Steelers with Bob Pompiani. Love this guy's insight. Chris, thanks so much for joining us. We'd love to have you back sometime talking more about the Pittsburgh Steelers.
God bless, brother.
Thank Chris Hoke for taking the time out to talk to us, learn so much about him. Also, we had some fun conversations off the record when we turned off the camera and just kept talking football. But that guy's brilliant. We look forward to having him again on this show. Check him out, KDK TV. He's always breaking things down, and follow him at HokeyBro76 on Twitter to follow and get more of his insights on things. But we got to talk about Damontae Kazee. We'll do that in just a minute here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. But first, we got to talk to you guys about our sponsors, Prize Picks. Prize Picks, of course, is the fun new daily fantasy game that everyone needs to start playing because it's fantasy sports made easy. This is a way to get your daily fix in by just simply picking the players that you think you have a beat on fantasy and just picking more or less than the Prize Pick projection that's there. How does this work? Well, simply, again, 2 to 5 players. You pick them out. You think you have a good beat on their day. Prize Picks is going to give you stats on how they think their day is going to go. And all you have to say is, hey, is it going to be more or is it going to be less? You can win up to 10 times your money on any entry, and you're not competing against others. You're just guessing more or less on any of the picks. This is awesome because you're just betting against the house. Prize Picks includes NFL, NBA, NHL, college sports, and so much more. Download the Prize Picks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up to play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. That's LOCKEDON, Locked On. And remember, that's $100, and Prize Picks will get you $100. Prizepicks.com with promo code Locked On, or download the Prize Picks app today. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, I'm your host, Chris Carter. Let's roll forward with this as like a little bit of news that happened. Now, TJ Watt nor Damontae Kazee have been activated yet for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and that happens. That's. I think the Steelers are going to take as long as they can to keep the other players on the roster before they cut them. But I still fully expect both to be back and available. TJ Watt hasn't said officially if he is, but Damontae Kazee said he expects to be ready when he spoke to reporters on Monday in the Steelers locker room. He also revealed that he fully broke his forearm in that preseason game. That's ridiculous. I'm sorry. If I ever broke my forearm, I'd be crying for days, years, months. I wouldn't be in this show. Like, I couldn't do this. And this guy's out here trying to get ready to come back for football. But Damontae Kazee, being back, I think this is a bigger deal than Steelers fans realize, because a lot of Steelers fans didn't get to go to Latrobe. They didn't see what they were doing with him. But I really think this could simplify a lot of things for this secondary, because Damontae Kazee, Terrell, Edmunds, and Minkah Fitzpatrick, each of those 3 guys could jump down into the slot. Each of those 3 guys can help against the run, though I'd say Kazee's probably, Kazee was a little physical when we saw him earlier this year, so maybe he's going to be willing with that too. And each of these 3 guys could help deep. Now, I will say Terrell Edmunds is the one guy you probably don't want helping deep as much, but he's good at trailing guys, he's good at running with guys. But as far as deep safety, like cover 2, single, cover 1, single field deep guys, center fielders guys, that's Minkah Fitzpatrick and Damontae Kazee's specialty over Terrell Edmunds. But each of these 3 guys are very competent dudes, and when you put them on the field all at the same time, I think it gives you an advantage that you're going to be able to have with the veteran experience that's going to be on your roster, and the ability of this defense to call different things, switch different things, and understand how to communicate and work different levels. I think we've kind of seen that when everyone's been healthy for the secondary, and really that was just week 1 when everyone was healthy. But we've seen them add William Jackson III. He seems excited to be there for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I wouldn't be shocked if William Jackson III and Cam Sutton are your outside corners against the Saints this week. And if Damontae Kazee's back, him, Edmunds, and Minkah Fitzpatrick are your primary secondary guys with them. And then maybe you throw in a couple plays where, Arthur Maulet comes in the slot. You throw a couple plays where Levi Wallace or Keller Witherspoon sub in at times. But I can see those 2 guys, William Jackson and Cam Sutton, living on the outsides and kind of being those guys. And then you just have a lot of floating pieces with those 3 safeties. Because, again, Kazee, Edmunds, Minkah Fitzpatrick, all 3 of those guys, I think, run with guys in man coverage. They come up and help the run, and they're guys who could play zones, help deep, and flow around the place. Now, again, Terrell Edmunds not a guy that I would think would intercept too many passes deep, but he is a guy who can use his speed, his burst, his size to run with guys and at least make sure that, hey, there's going to be a tighter passing window when you challenge me back there. And the big thing about this is disguising what the Steelers defense is doing. The Steelers defense is still not where it wants to be. Even when TJ Watt comes back, they're still going to need to find ways to better disguise their coverages, to kind of confuse quarterbacks, slow up the processes, and that'll help the pass rush as it's trying to get back into the mode that it was last year. And I don't think it'll get all the way there or anything like that. But I do think that with Kazee back and with this secondary humming, and I think it can hum with the guys that they're going to have here, Kazee and William Jackson III. I mean, they're kind of like your free agency pickups right now, right on top of bringing in Levi Wallace. But you add them to this mix, And I think you give yourself a chance to kind of, run it, bump and run with guys. I pointed this out on the Monday podcast. When I watched that Tennessee Titans team, that was a Tennessee secondary that was doing everything it could to just make life hard for Patrick Mahomes. Don't let the Chiefs just get free reign and easy passing pocket, easy passing zones and passing windows to throw through. And also they were supported by a front four that was getting after Patrick Mahomes. If the Steelers could get TJ Watt back and he could get that group going, I think this again jumps back up to being the defense that everyone hoped it would be going into the season. But we got to see how these guys play. We got to see how these guys practice before we even get there. And we also still got to see when TJ Watt will be activated, if he will be activated for the Saints game. We've had reporting for over a month now that he will be activated after the bye week and that he will be able to play in this game. We just need to see the official announcement. Who knows? It might happen right after I finish recording this. Now, full disclosure, I just want to say, obviously, I wore different clothes, in wearing this. I recorded with Chris Hoke very early on Monday, and then I had to come back and record after I finished all my Pitt stuff, and actually not all my Pitt stuff because I'm actually about to go cover a Pitt basketball game, but I wanted to make sure we got this done. I thought this was a really fun conversation. We're going to have Arthur Moats tomorrow talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers, so we got back-to-back days with former Steelers talking about your team. We're going to talk more about what this team's doing, where this team's going, and what to expect in the coming weeks. Again, I'm Chris Carter. Thanks so much for joining the Locked On Steelers podcast, where you can find the show on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Odyssey, and YouTube. If you're watching this video on YouTube, hit the like button on this video if you enjoy it. Hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel to get all of our daily Monday through Friday episodes, as well as our bonus content. Again, check us out very soon. We'll be back Wednesday with more here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, talking about your Pittsburgh Steelers.